Hello everyone, I'm JG and welcome back to Music Forever, where today I'm going to be reviewing the newest album from Backxwash, I Lie Here Buried With My Rings and My Dresses. This is an album that I was looking forward to quite a bit, considering I was a pretty big fan of Backwash's last studio record, God Has Nothing to Do With This, Leave Him Out of It, that was released about a year ago, as well as the Stigmata EP that she dropped last summer as well. I feel like those were a couple of really excellent projects from last year, a couple of my favorite releases of the year, and I really love Backwash's unique take on industrial hip-hop and horrorcore that was present across both of those releases. So I was really excited to hear what this new project was going to have in store for us. And I'm happy to share that this is one of those releases where my very high expectations for the project were met with the final release, as this is just another fantastic project from Backxwash that I'm pretty sure come the end of the year is still going to be one of my favorites of the year, and is definitely going to be making my year-end list for favorite albums. Generally speaking, this new album here takes a lot of what I really liked on God Has Nothing to Do With This and further expands on it and makes it even better than it was on that last record. You know, instrumentally here on this project, you're still getting that very dark, heavy style of industrial hip-hop and rap metal that was present on that last project. You know, the mix of really hard-hitting percussion, the dense guitar riffs, the really unnerving production and bits of noise that are mixed into this thing too. Instrumentally, it takes what was on that record, like I said before, and expands on it, develops it even further, and comes back with something even better. Most of the production here on this record is provided by Backxwash herself, and she does a really fantastic job at consistently providing fantastic instrumental after fantastic instrumental on this thing. There are also a few tracks on this thing that feature some outsiders providing production too, whether it be some artists that are really just tacking on their own ideas and sounds to Backwash's existing instrumental, or maybe even providing their own entire instrumental completely to this project too. In the former category, you do have Ada Rook of the group Black Dresses providing some guitar work on a couple of tracks here that sounds really nice. You also have Lauren Bousfield providing a kind of glitchy, noisy outro to the track Thy Holy Name, which I really liked. It provided a sense of chaos to the end of that song that I don't think the track would have had otherwise. Really liked it. And when it comes to artists providing completely original instrumentals to this project, there are some pretty interesting pieces of production added to this thing. You know, for one thing, the track Blood in the Water has an instrumental from Clipping, and a Clipping Backxwash collaboration is pretty much a dream collaboration for me, and the final product really just does not disappoint for me. The instrumental that's provided here has a dark, unnerving sound to it that kind of reminds me of some of the instrumentals on Clipping's last couple of records, you know, that horror-themed duology of projects they dropped over the last couple of years that I really loved, and I think that style works really nicely with Backwash's core sound, though it's worth noting here on this particular track that it feels like they're taking the sound of those last couple of Clipping records and kind of distorting and manipulating it to some extent to fit Backwash's style of delivery and really just the identity of the rest of the record. And I think it works to this track's benefit and the record as a whole's benefit too. Overall, it's a dream collaboration for me and not one that disappointed at all. You also have the song Nine Hells on this thing, which features production from Nowhere to Run, which is probably more recognizable to the average music listener as Eric Balderos and Jamie Morgan of the group Code Orange, a group known for their industrial style of metalcore, a group I quite enjoy. And the instrumental here, this track, is really excellent as well. Not really a metalcore themed instrumental whatsoever, it leans more into the industrial side of Code Orange's sound, but it still does certainly have a bit of a Code Orange flair to it when it comes to the tone of the instrumental that's used here on this thing. And once again, I think it's another really fantastic instrumental that sees the featured producers taking their core sound and, again, working it into the sound that Backxwash has going for her on the entirety of this record. While this album's instrumentals feel like a very natural expansion of what was on God Has Nothing to Do With This, conceptually this record feels like a bit of a different beast. You know, that record was more about Backxwash dealing with her own form of forgiveness, whereas this record feels conceptually more like being in a really dark, tormented place with no means of escape. I mean, sure, the last record was certainly a dark project from a thematic standpoint, but this record seems to take it to a completely different level. The album's opener, Purpose of Pain, is a pretty interesting track. It's one that just keeps repeating a phrase over and over again, talking about the purpose of pain, how pain is used to alert the person experiencing the pain that something is wrong and allows them to fix that, and consequently, pain can be seen as being kind of a good thing in small doses, as it helps people know that something is wrong and allows them to correct whatever that issue may be. And I was kind of, thinking about this opener when compared to the rest of the record and what it might be trying to say. And I kind of think it might be talking about how, while it describes pain in small doses as being a good thing, on the rest of the record here, the pain described is certainly not small in its dosage. And I have to wonder if Backxwash is really trying to stress here how, while pain might be good in small doses, it might be helpful in small doses, the pain she's experiencing and describes on the rest of the project is so great that it's far beyond the point where it could be considered a good thing or a helpful thing. At this point, it's just painful, very, very painful. The album's next track, Wail of the Banshee, is the first full song here on this thing, and I think it does a really excellent job from a conceptual standpoint at establishing a lot of the themes and ideas that are talked about on the rest of the record. I mean, the song itself opens up with the lines, "My mind's stuck in a torture chamber," which I feel like is a really nice summation of a lot of the topics covered on this record as a whole. And the fact that this song opens up with that line, I feel like is very fitting from a thematic standpoint. The track itself talks about things like suicidal thoughts, drug abuse, two topics that are present on a lot of the tracks here on this record. I feel like their presence here on this song, again, serves to introduce the listener to these topics that are just going to be further explored later on in the project too. Really, the topic of death as a whole is one of the most prevalent on the entire project. Backxwash here on this thing is talking about death at our own hands, death as a result of these drugs and their effects, death at the hands of others as a result of a variety of different reasons. Death is just plaguing this entire record in one way or another in its lyrics. Another interesting topic present here on this project is the idea of losing one's culture as a result of colonization, especially talking about religion at certain points here on this project. And I'm guessing the religion in question here, introduced by the colonizers in question, would be Christianity. You have tracks like the title track here on this thing, as well as the 8th track on the record, that at various points talk about the loss of culture as a result of colonization, and how Backxwash is affected by these things when it comes to her race, gender, religion, and she even goes further at various points on these tracks, talking about how it affects her directly, and sometimes it's more indirect by driving a wedge between her and people she could relate to in any of those previously mentioned categories. The album's closer, Burned to Ashes, serves as a really excellent summation of a lot of the topics covered on this record. While I felt like Wail of the Banshee was a really excellent opener to this project from a thematic standpoint, as being like the first full song here on this thing, I feel like this track here does an excellent job at covering all of the topics covered here on this record to some extent. Again, death is present a lot here in the lyrics of this track. Again, suicide and drug abuse come up here on this song as well. But one particular moment in the lyrics I found particularly interesting was the part where Backxwash is mentioning someone close to her, talking about how she needs prayer to overcome the depression she's experiencing, kind of undermining her own experience in the process of that. And it feels like one of those moments where you could feel the connection between a lot of the suicidal thoughts and depression and addiction, as mentioned at parts of this record, being tied together with the religious aspect of this thing as well. You could see how religion has in some ways harmed Backxwash, and how it's led to people maybe not taking these mental health issues quite as seriously as they should, because they maybe just want to use religion as a way to escape, praying away the problems and stuff like that, even though those things really aren't all that effective. Or maybe I'm just reading into that particular part of the lyrics a bit too much. I can't be completely sure myself. But regardless, this final track here on the record, as I said before, does a really excellent job at taking a lot of the ideas and themes present on most of this record and really summarizing them, it feels like, in a nice, concise final package. Of course, the lyrics and the themes here on this record would not hit nearly as hard as they actually do if not for the excellent performances littered across this entire record. Backxwash's performances on this thing are consistently passionate, energetic, and all around just really well performed. Her rapping pairs excellently with the really dark, gritty production across this thing, and I think it does a really good job at getting across a lot of the pain that's expressed in the actual lyrics themselves here on this thing. You really feel all the emotions being discussed in the lyrics through the way the vocals here on this thing are performed. It makes everything feel really gritty and real, and it just makes the record that much better. The hooks here on this record are also really memorable and interesting too. They're not exactly catchy in the way that a hook in like a pop song would be catchy, but they're really memorable in their own unique way. I think it's the mixture of how forceful they often feel with the cathartic nature of them that just makes them all really stand out and special. And of course, I can't talk about the performances here on this project without talking about the featured artists that happen to contribute some vocals to this thing too. Much like the featured producers on this thing that bring their best to the project, the vocalists here bring some really excellent performances to a variety of the tracks here on this record. Again, you have Rook here on this thing bringing some really excellent vocals to the hook of the title track on this thing. They're really intense. They kind of remind me of the vocals on her Crisis Sigil project with how shouty and emotive they are. Overall, it makes for one of the most standout and memorable hooks on this entire project. The song Terror Packets features a really excellent feature from Censored Dialogue, who brings a really fantastic verse to this song that's able to rival what Backxwash brings to the track. The verse is really excellent when it comes to storytelling as well as energy. Overall, just a fantastic verse here on this project. One of the most interesting features on the project has to come from the artist Sadie on the track Song of Sinners, who provides some very soothing yet kind of eerie vocals to the hook of the track. It's one of the least heavy parts of the entire record, but something about this feature just really gets under my skin and unnerves me every time I listen to it. It's really excellent, and I like how unique it is in the context of the record as a whole. Overall, I Lie Here Buried With My Rings and My Dresses is another fantastic album from Backxwash. As I said earlier, the sound of this record takes what I really liked about the sound of her last record and develops and expands on it even more. All the instrumentals here on this thing are excellent. The performances, whether they be from Backxwash or any of the featured artists, are consistently great too. The lyrics here and themes are always engaging. Really, there's just nothing to this record that I think is all that weak or bad. And if you consider yourself a fan of industrial hip-hop, horrorcore, rap metal, or just good music in general, you really need to check this project out because it certainly will not disappoint. This is certainly a record I'm going to be coming back to over and over again, and I have a good feeling that come the end of this year, or maybe the very start of next year, I'm going to be talking about this again in my best of the year list. I'm excited to see where Backxwash takes her career next, and I'm also hoping that going forward, she is able to find a bit more peace in her own life, given just how dark a lot of the lyrics and subject matter on this record are. But yeah, if you haven't heard this record already, as I said multiple times already in this review, definitely check it out because it is great. Thank you guys for watching this video. Make sure you comment down below your thoughts on this album if you've heard it already, and leave a like on the video. Subscribe for more music-related content, including more album reviews, discussion videos, countdown lists, things of that sort. Thank you guys for watching once again, and stay golden.